Um, Today, JoLyn is going to talk to you about accountability. And I believe that her philosophy is if we're going to be here and work at our jobs at least 8 hours a day, that's obviously something we're putting some major investment into. So why not do it well, do it better, and why not be happy here? And she has some very good techniques and insights that will help us do that. She is a workforce specialist. She's been doing it for more than 20 years. Her passion is teaching people how to be happy and do their jobs better and give better service to their employees. So with that, I'm going to bring on JoLyn. She's very much into an interactive presentation, so chime in when you have questions or anecdotes to share with her. Thanks.
Thanks, Renee. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. I know you all have your mouths full, so you can't speak near as clearly as I, but it's nice to be here. I'd never been to Utah before, and so this is a new experience for me, and Las Vegas was certainly an eye-opening experience for me. But I saw a lot of things the other night that I don't see in Columbus, Nebraska. But it was fun. So it's a pleasure to be here with you, and I can certainly see why Renee came back to Utah, because it's beautiful, beautiful country. I can't imagine waking up to this every morning. So I'm going to enjoy the time I'm going to be here for sure. So let me tell you just a little bit about myself. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because you have the bio that Renee provided you. Plus, I want to spend most of our time talking about the subject at hand, accountability. As Renee said, I've spent most of my career in the education area. Started out as a public school teacher, and then I went into various industries. I've spent some time in the manufacturing industry, in healthcare. I spent some time in I'm in the electric utility industry now, and most of it has been in the quality, process improvement, and education area. So that's a little bit about me professionally. On the personal side, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother of a one-year-old little grandson that's just kind of the apple of my eye. And so I'm a single parent. I have a dog and 23 fish that are my companions when I go home. So they provide a lot of joy in my life. A lot of people wonder why I'm in a wheelchair, and I usually just share it up front so you don't wonder even more. About 5 years ago, I had a car accident and incurred a spinal cord injury. And so as a result, I am currently paralyzed from the waist down, but I'm believing that I'm going to walk again. The doctors tell me no, but I say yes. And so I will be walking again someday, but for now, you'll have to kind of put up with me here rolling around as best I can. My style is very interactive, as Renee mentioned, so if you have questions throughout the presentation, please just raise your hand or blurt the question out. I don't necessarily need to wait till the end because I like to have this very interactive. Because part of my belief, a big part of my belief, is the answers to the problems that you're having in the workplace lie right here within this room. It's not with me. All right, I don't claim to be an expert in accountability. I've got a lot of experience working with people and helping them become more accountable. And that's what I'm here today, to hopefully provide some insights for you to take back to your workplace. And as Renee mentioned, by the way, how many of you are going to be in this afternoon's workshop? By show of hands, just kind of give me an idea. Okay, good. So what we're going to do this afternoon is actually take some of these concepts that we're going to talk about now and apply them to you, yourself, and to your workplace. And that's what we'll be doing this afternoon. So, but for the time being, like I said, this, as we go throughout, please don't hesitate to share any insights or thoughts that you have. If you don't agree with something, if you don't understand something, that's what we're here for. So I want this to be your session. All right, so let's talk a little bit about accountability. First of all, I want to give a lot of the credit to what I'm going to be talking about comes from this book. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it. It's called The Oz Principle. Excellent book. If you are interested in the subject anymore and want to learn any more about it, I'd highly recommend this book. So a lot of the material or a lot of the concepts that I'm going to be covering come from this book. And there's also another book called The Emerald City, which is kind of an offshoot of this book. that goes into it a little bit, even in more detail. All right? So this first slide, oh, also before we start, the materials in front of you, the white handout that's stapled is just a copy of the slides that I'm going to be going through. So just feel free to follow along and jot any comments or thoughts that you have down as we go throughout. And then the yellow sheet is just a kind of an add-on of something that I found as I was doing some reading on 10 things that you'll never hear an accountable person say. And just kind of some application and some things that I think might be able to apply to your positions, your jobs. Okay, so the first slide. All of you are probably fairly familiar with what you see up there, the Wizard of Oz and the main characters. Now, why in the world would I use this as an opening slide? Anybody have any idea or any thoughts as to what's the relationship between the Wizard of Oz and the characters in Oz and accountability? Any thoughts? Yeah.
At first, they didn't, they couldn't do things when they didn't have a heart, didn't have a brain, or whatever, and they were going to get those all together. They learned to have them on the journey.
Okay, excellent. So by working together, communicating and spending time together, they learned of what they really needed in order to get to the destination or get the result they wanted, right? Did they have those things all along? Absolutely. And that's really what accountability is. It's within you, all right? It's not searching for it somewhere else or going on some journey to find it. It's right within each and every one of us. They all set out on this journey to find the heart and find the brain and everything that they were looking for. But when it came to the end, when they got to the wizard, they discovered they had it all along. They just had to find it and had to work with one another and communicate with one another to discover that they had it. Okay? So, accountability begins by clearly defining the results that you're trying to accomplish. What are you really trying to get to? What do you really want? And when you think about accountability, everybody talks about it. Leaders want it. Employees are afraid of it a lot of times. Shareholders demand it. Stakeholders want it. So what really is accountability, and how do we get to it? So what I want to start off with is a little exercise. Okay? And I'm going to ask you, first of all, and I'm going to jot some of your ideas down up here. When you think of accountability, what are some specific behaviors that demonstrate accountability? In other words, what does it look like? How do you know when you have it? And what does it really look like? Yeah, would you mind? That'd be great, thank you. Just think about it in the workplace. Think about people you know that you would consider accountable people. What do they do? What do they say that says they're accountable? Yes?
I think they would solve problems. If they see issues to deal with, they look for solutions instead of ways out of the problem.
Excellent. If they have a problem, they look for ways to solve it. They don't look for ways to not solve it or for someone else to solve it, but how can I solve it? Good. Yes?
I think openness and constant communication.
On openness and constant communication. Okay. Tell me a little bit more. What do you mean by that? How might that display itself as it relates to accountability?
I think of my student workers and the ones who are, they check in and they're, providing updates of where they are, rather than just sort of getting lost in the task and shutting themselves in their offices.
Excellent. Okay, good. What else? Yes?
I think, like, punctuality. Someone is going to be there when it should be started, so that
they're not waiting for someone to coax them to go or whatever. They take the initiative and they're punctual. Okay, good. Excellent. Yes? Responsibility. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about that, the difference between the two and the relationship with the two, but tell me more what you think about when you think responsibility.
Good or bad, you see what this is what we're going to
Excellent. Okay, good. So responsibility is definitely a component of accountability. Yes?
I think being a team player, they're accountable to the whole system, their team goals, so they're helpful to others as well.
All right, so they consider the entire team, not just, it's not all about me, but it's what do I do that affects the rest of the team? Okay, good. Yes?
Follow through, which means that if you're asked to do something or you ask someone to do something, you know that they are going to complete that task.
All right, you can depend on them, you know that it's going to get done if, okay? And I think Renee, the lady over here said team. They focus on the team, not just on themselves.
Okay, I'm not a very good writer.
That's all right, you're doing good. Okay, let's get one more. Yes?
Using the word I.
Okay, tell me more. What do you mean?
I will, I own, I will be.
Okay, all right, so they take ownership of things. Okay, good. Using the word I. All right, good. We got a good list there. How about the second question? And actually, let's lump the second and third question together. Why is accountability important to you and to your department or to the university or to your team? What is the importance of accountability? Because again, we all talk about it, you hear a lot about it, people write books about it. So what's the big deal about it? Why is it so important? Yeah.
Personally, I like to work with people who are accountable because I know that if they make a decision, then they'll stand behind that decision, good or bad. I think also if you are committed enough to be accountable to something that works for you, you get committed.
All right, good. Okay, so it's more enjoyable to work with people that are accountable because you can depend on them, you know. Okay, good. What else? Why is it important? Yes? Important to get the job done, absolutely. We got jobs to do, we've got problems to solve, we've got issues to resolve, we've got to get the job done, do we not? And we need accountable people to do that. Yes?
I think when you're willing to be accountable, also it brings in confidence, it makes someone feel that you're going to take care of them.
Okay, whether it be the student or any of your customers, right? Exactly, it displays a self-confidence and that confidence portrayed out to others. Okay, good.
I think customer service and just building reputations with the community and with students. That if you're accountability, they can depend on you. And if you're putting on an event, they know that to go on and they'll come back the next year, especially if they're a sponsor.
Okay, a sponsor, you say?
Right, if they're helping financially to
Sure.
put on your event.
Okay.
They've got to know that it's going to run smoothly and be successful.
Okay, good, excellent. One more. Any other ideas on why it's so important? Yes?
Sometimes, like other things, accountability flows downhill, and the legislature makes us accountable for certain things, for teacher certifications, whatever. We have to make sure that we're accountable for students, that they're prepared.
Okay, good. So there's a sense of leadership in accountability is what I hear you saying. And it flows down. We're going to talk about that too. You've hit on a lot of good points, and we're going to expand. Thank you, Renee, I think. We're going to expand on a lot of the things that you just talked about because it sounds like you've got a pretty good grip on accountability already. So let's talk a little bit more about and expand on some of these things that we just mentioned. Now, when you see this statement up here, if it is to be, it is up to me, and if it is up to me, it will be. A lot of words, kind of a fancy little saying, but if you were to paraphrase that in your own words, what is that really saying? What are we really saying about accountability? Get her done, exactly. That's right. And if it's going to get done, I'm going to have to be the one to at least take my responsibility as a big piece of that, right? Maybe I don't have to do it all, but if it's going to happen, I have to be the one to either do it or at least do my part in order to make it happen, right? So let's talk about responsibility and accountability because we talked about responsibilities being a component of accountability. Now, these two words, they're often used interchangeably, but they are different. Okay, now when we talk about responsibility, it often pertains to tasks. For instance, like in a job description is one of the analogies I like to use. It's got pretty clear-cut responsibilities as to what you are responsible for in your job. You all have job descriptions, right? You use job descriptions here? Okay. There's some places that don't anymore. But in most places, they still do use job descriptions where responsibilities are very well defined. Yeah, that's right. There's the accountability piece. All right. Accountability is the manner in which you carry out those tasks for which you are responsible. It's a self-empowering mindset that asks, what more can I do to get the results? Critical question there, one that I want you to remember. A truly accountable person, it's not just about these jobs description, these responsibilities I have, but it's the manner in which I carry out those responsibilities. And I'm constantly asking myself, if I'm a truly accountable person, I'm constantly asking myself, what more can I do to get the results? Now remember, accountability starts with clearly defined results. So if you're a leader of a department or a department head or what have you, one of your main responsibilities is to clearly define the results that you want your team to get to. And if those aren't defined, it's going to be fairly difficult for people to truly be accountable, because accountability starts with clearly defined results. And then a truly accountable person will constantly ask themselves, what more can I do to get the results? Doesn't matter if it goes outside my job description. Not that I'm going to step on other people's toes, but the mindset that I have is, what more can I do to help the team, to get the problem solved, to get the job done, whatever that might be. All right, so that key question that I want you never to remember is, what more can I do to get results? Now, one way I like to kind of, I guess, use an analogy is a volleyball analogy. How many of you are fairly familiar with the game of volleyball? Everybody pretty much know? Okay. All right, so in a game of volleyball, 6 players, right? Every player pretty much has a defined area that they're responsible for covering, right? They each have an area that they are responsible for. Now, what is the goal in volleyball when that ball is served over to you? What is the goal, or what's the result that you're trying to get? Okay, get it back over, but even before that, you don't want to let it hit the ground, right? You don't want that ball to hit the floor. That's the end result. That's the goal that you're trying to accomplish. Now, if you've got 6 players, everybody's responsible for their area, okay, their little box, everybody's responsible for their box, the ball comes over and it falls right on the line of 2 players. Were those players responsible? Were they being responsible? Yeah, they probably were. They're covering their area, right? Okay. Were they accountable? No. Not necessarily, right? Why not?
Because they need to do more to ensure that ball doesn't hit the ground.
Okay, and what does that look like? What does more look like?
Like them moving together.
Okay, moving together.
Perhaps beforehand, if there's one on the line, you take it, so then that person knows that they are the ones that should have gone for that rather than let it fall.
So they've communicated, right? Up front. They've talked it out. They know if this happens, then this, right? We've got our little areas that we're responsible for, but there are times when that ball is going to maybe fall right between our areas of responsibility. And we've talked it out as to what's going to happen if that happens. All right? So when we talk about accountability kind of covers those areas, and there's overlap between the areas of responsibility. So we don't get locked in to that's just my area of responsibility. But if I'm truly accountable, I'm going to look beyond those areas as to what can I do to make sure that ball doesn't hit the ground. Because that's the whole goal, is to get that ball back over the net to the other team and hopefully have it hit the ground on their side. Okay? Make sense? Questions, comments? What do you think? pie in the sky? Does it really work? Somebody said something? It's good? Okay. All right. So let's look at it a little bit differently when we talk about results. Let's look at it from activities versus results. Okay? When we look at activities, activities are actions that people take that lead to results. Keep in mind, those results might not be the results we want. Okay, so when we talk about activities, it's actions that people take that get some kind of a result. Hopefully it's the desired one, but it's not always. When we talk about results, it's the desired or undesired outcome of taking actions. All right, let me ask you this. Any of you ever have days like this? I know I do. I come to work and I am instantly bombarded with phone calls, people coming in. I've got a to-do list, 2 pages long. I'm trying to check it off as I go. I have no time for lunch. I have no time for breaks. I am constantly doing something. I am so busy at the end of the day. When I'm driving home, and I get home, and my son or somebody asks me, "How'd your day go, Mom?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I was so busy." And yet, when I stop and think about, what did I really do? What did I get done that really added value to my organization or my team? I have a hard time answering that. But man, I was busy. I am exhausted at the end of the day because I was busy doing something. I was heavy into activities. But if someone were to ask me, "So what results did you get today, Mom?" I might have a hard time answering that. But I know I was busy and I know I'm tired. Anybody ever have any days like that? So what I would challenge you to do is when you find yourself wrapped up in one of those days, take a step back and ask yourself, what result am I trying to accomplish here? And once you define that, ask yourself, what more can I do to get that result? And ask yourself, is what I'm doing leading to any end result? And if it's not, or if you can't define that, you probably better ask. Be finding out, why am I doing what I'm doing? Not that it's not important, but maybe you've not had that communicated to you. Maybe you don't understand the importance, or maybe some of your people don't understand the importance of what they're doing. Because there's a big difference between doing activities and doing things that are going to end in that positive result that we're trying to get to. All right? So, here's a little bit different way of looking at it, defining a little bit more. When we look at activities, activities is a step that leads to an outcome, whereas the result is the actual outcome. All right, again, accountability starts with what? Defining what? No, not responsibility. Starts with an R. Results, exactly. Accountability starts on the right-hand side. What is the actual outcome you're trying to get to? All right? An activity describes what you're going to do. A result describes what you're going to get. All right? And we should be focusing on the right-hand side. We have to do the things on the left, but your focus should be on the right as far as what are you going to get. Activities ask, leave open the question, why do you do what you do? A result answers the question, why you do what you do. Okay, so result gives you the answer to that question. Activities, shareholders may not acknowledge as important, but if it's results, that's what the stakeholders are involved in. That's what they want. They want to know what's the result you're getting. They don't care about what the activities are. They want that end result. That's where stakeholders and your shareholders are focused on, and your customers. All right? Activities may or may not add value, whereas results add value. There's no question. Activities typically measured in terms of your input, and results, can be objectively measured in terms of your output. All right, so when you think about measuring input, as an activity, what are some of the things that you measure when you look at activities, what you're doing? How do you measure that? You measure it in terms of what? Pardon me? Numbers might be. Might be time, the time it took you to do something, the energy that was exerted to do something, to get something done. Whereas a result measures, or in a result you measure the results and the outcome. It's like, what do I get as a result of putting in that time? Or what is it that I get that as a result of putting in all that energy? Okay, so when we're talking about accountability, we're going to be focused on the right-hand side. We're going to be focused on the result that we're trying to accomplish. Not necessarily everything it takes to get to that point, but what is the end result that we're trying to get to? Okay, does it make sense? Think about your own. I want to ask you, think about your own jobs or your own departments and where some of these things apply. Do you have anything that you can think of in your work teams where you're maybe more focused on activities where you should be more focused on results? Any examples? Or maybe where you're focused on results, which is a good thing. Yes?
Well, we do this in the facilities management area all the time with our costs for energy and so forth. And so we use the amount of money that we put in to save energy, electrical costs and so forth. And if we put in so much, what's the payback or our results? And that's what's important to us, is how can we minimize the cost with the maximum amount of opportunity that we can have there.
Great example.
We use that all the time.
Great example.
Same with our labor costs and everything.
Yep, exactly. Okay, great example. Another one. Anybody else have another example? Yes?
Well, in academics, I think we do a lot of activities. We schedule classes, we schedule faculty to teach classes. It's all things that we do, but I guess you don't know the results until that process is over and you see how well the student is working.
Okay, all right. But you can probably use those results then to maybe change your focus as you're doing those next activities, perhaps?
Yeah, we do, but it's a long process in academics. To feedback, to assess your results and feed it back.
Before you get that.
It's not something you do on a day-to-day basis. It's something
Exactly.
you do on
But you have
year
to have
by
it
year.
to make the adjustments.
Pardon me?
But you would have to have those, to make those future adjustments.
Those future adjustments, yeah. So you get maybe more of a positive result or the end result that you're really trying to accomplish from an overall macro perspective, right? Okay, good. Any other example that you can think of maybe in your work area? Yes?
In the construction industry, as we do capital projects and so forth, what we're looking for is the results, and it's all driven by schedule. And so we watch that. All the activities have to drive the major components where our milestone events are, that they meet those schedules, and it's consistent in those kind of things. And it's a little easier to see. I mean, in the academic area, it might be, how do we drive our students to get done in a 6-year period or a 5-year period or a 4-year period, but this is a matter of driving so that the contractors know this is what the expectation is, and I think that's important, that the activities must lead to the expectations, and then the results are we have this project that is brought to completion within a budget and
on
within
time.
the time.
Yes,
That's right.
exactly. Yep. So you've got those expectations at least to measure against. And those activities, as you said, should support those expectations that you're trying to reach that end result. Yep, excellent. You had your hand up.
I found with new student orientation that parents and students are a lot more motivated when they talk about results than activities. So they want to know what they'll accomplish at orientation rather than how they'll get there and the activities they'll be doing. And so all of my dialogue with them is about, you'll finalize your class schedule, you'll get your student ID, you'll meet other students rather than the how we'll do that.
Great example, yeah. Because as a parent, especially if I'm paying for it, right, I want to know what that result is, what my child is going to end up with at the end of those 4, 5, or 6 years. Exactly, great example. Okay, let's take another way to look at doing the job versus achieving results. A lot of times people look at those two as very different. I'm doing my job in order to achieve a result. What we want to get to is to where those two are the one and the same. By me doing my job, I am getting the result. All right? Just, it's not two separate things. It's by me doing whatever I do, whether I'm doing data analysis, whether I'm registering students or whatever, by me doing that, that is getting their end result that we're trying to accomplish. So the two aren't necessarily independent of one another, but they are one and the same. Okay? Now, where do we tend to focus? Thank you very much. Where do we tend to focus on? Doing the job or achieving the result? What do you come to work to do? A job, right? People ask you, what's your job? People don't ask you, what result are you trying to get? Do they? No. We don't think in those terms. We think about what our job is. All right? So again, what I've been trying to do to help me become more accountable is at the end of the day, when I'm going home from work, I ask myself, what result did you accomplish today, JoLyn? Instead of what did you do today, JoLyn? I can tell you what I did. I checked off so many things off my to-do list. You know, I taught such and such class. But what's really the end result I'm trying to get by teaching that class? And did I do it? Sometimes I don't know. And sometimes, like he said, it takes a while. It's not a day-to-day thing. You know, by one of my responsibilities in my job description is to create a more accountable workforce. Now, can I measure that day to day? No. The activity I do is teaching classes and working with people to help them become more accountable. Okay? And that's what I have to constantly think about while I'm doing my job is what is the end result I'm trying to do? I'm trying to accomplish. Okay? And just a little example to help support that is, well, for those of you that in academics, you know you've got maybe an agenda that you need to cover. When I'm teaching a class, I've got certain points I need to cover. And a lot of times I get so focused on, okay, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to cover this. And if there's people in my class that are maybe struggling with something, I need to take a step back and say, okay, now wait a minute. My job is to create a more accountable workforce. And there's someone in my audience that is struggling with a certain element of what we're teaching. Throw the agenda out the door for just a minute and focus on my customer. All right? And help that person get to where they need to be in terms of the result that I'm trying to accomplish. Then I can go back to, okay, now let's go back to what we're here to cover. All right? So again, sometimes it's taking a step back and really asking yourself, okay, who's my customer here and what am I trying to do? What's the result I'm trying to get as I'm working with them? Now, here's a little example. Responsibility versus accountability. Did they get their job done? Yeah. Their job was to paint stripes on the highway, right? Paint the yellow lines on the highway. They got their job done. Were they responsible? Sort of. If you look at their job description, it says, you know, paint the yellow lines on the highway. They're responsible. But were they accountable? No, absolutely not. This is not a job well done. It's got the results that we want, okay? So when we talk about a results-driven culture, okay? Up at the top we have results, all right? With a results-driven culture, meaning our organization has a culture where we are focused on getting end results. Thank you. The things that lead up to that on the bottom of our pyramid are experiences. Now, tell me, how do experiences relate to a results-driven culture? Why are experiences part of that? Or what does that have to do with the culture?
You don't make the same mistake twice.
Okay, exactly. You don't make the same mistakes. Okay, you create, whether you're a leader or whether you're a staff person, it doesn't matter. You create experiences every day when you come to work. You create experiences for those around you. You create experiences for students, all sorts of people, anybody that you come in contact with. And again, it's like she said, so we don't make the same mistake. Beliefs. Now, think about experiences and then beliefs on top. What's the relationship there?
Your experience and your beliefs will lead you to better improvement.
Okay, good. Or maybe not so good, right? It can go the other way, exactly. Okay, our experiences many times create the beliefs that we have. And as a result, the beliefs cause our actions. Because of what I believe, it causes me to act a certain way, right? Would you buy that? Would you agree with that? Okay? We all have our beliefs, and the beliefs that we have cause actions, cause us to do certain things a certain way. And those actions all play into the culture that we create for those around us. So it all starts with experiences. Those experiences that you create can cause and can interfere or help with the beliefs that you're trying to create in those around you that cause the actions that, again, relate to the culture that we have. All right? So when we talk about a common mistake that's made is many times we only work with the upper part of the pyramid, meaning we only look at what we're doing and how it is affecting our results. And sometimes, again, we need to take a step back and look at what kind of experiences are we creating for our students? What kind of experiences are we creating for the parents of our students? What kind of experiences are we creating for each other that are creating those beliefs that are affecting the actions that we take that, again, are either getting us the results that we want or maybe the results that we don't want? So,
I was going to add, we were talking earlier on the subject of beliefs. The way that could be a negative thing is if they're not actually beliefs, but rather assumptions or judgments.
good point. Yes.
And we do make assumptions and judgments off of our experiences, but they're not on the
Yes, very, very good point. Yeah, and we do. We all make assumptions, whether we know we're not supposed to or it's better not to, but we do because of those experiences that we've had. And those assumptions or those judgments that we make cause us to behave in a certain way. And sometimes those behaviors may either lead us towards the results we're trying to get, or they may take us away further from the results we're trying to get. And if we find that our behaviors are not supporting the culture that we're trying to create, what I'm suggesting is that you take a step back and look at what are some of those experiences that might be causing some of those assumptions or causing some of those beliefs or judgments that we're making that are not supporting the culture that we're trying to create here at the university.
You or anybody here has any strategies for checking themselves to find out if what they believe is an assumption or not? Because I find, like, when you get to the actions and the results part of it, and your boss comes to you and say, well, why did you do it this way? And you're like, well, I assumed that's what she wanted or whatever. That's where you get into trouble and where your accountability is in the negatives. So I'm wondering if there are any strategies right at the point of beliefs, where we can self-check ourselves. Like, is that what she really wants? Is that how she really feels? Is that where she really comes from? To make sure you're not assuming judgment. Does anybody have any?
That's a great question.
Well, you can always ask the person that's what they want.
Okay, that's being accountable, isn't it? Yeah, asking the person, is this the way you want it or is this what you wanted? So sometimes asking. Why don't we do that? Why don't we ask sometimes? Don't want to look stupid. We're hired to do a job, right? And if I ask questions, I may look like I don't know what I'm doing.
Sometimes we can't anticipate.
Oh.
I had an experience putting on a step show, and I've been here our president of our Black Student Association, or Black Student Union, is international. And so one of the teams called and said, what are your guidelines for your step show? And she said, well, we just really like to have fun. So the team that came that had called, their idea of fun and my belief of a family show was not in the harmony at all. And I was really upset with the number that they performed. And SUSA was upset because some people, because we co-sponsor things. So they were upset, I was upset. They said, well, we called and said that it was supposed to be fun. So this is what we did. So based on those disharmonizing beliefs, now our actions are, okay, we've written guidelines, we have contracts, we have, all this to try and spell out, okay, we have junior high step teams here. This needs to be family friendly. This needs to be, you need to cover yourself appropriately. You need to make sure your lyrics don't have bad words in it. So we just really had to spell it out. So hopefully in the future, our results will be a reflection of our beliefs.
Of your beliefs, yeah. Exactly, great point. And what you did there is create alignment. You create alignment with your experiences and your beliefs and the results that you're trying to accomplish. That's a good representation of the culture that you have here at the university. Yeah, good. Yes?
I'm not sure if this adds to the answer that was originally posed, but there's a quote, I think, from a program I got somewhere. I don't even know if it's the exact one, but it always kind of helps me check myself. It says, never make assumptions based on perception. And so, I always try just to remind myself, it's like whatever you perceive or whatever you presume, just never make an assumption until you know for sure.
Until you know for sure, exactly. There's a program that we do, it's called Send Delaney, and we have a concept in there called assuming innocence. And it's before you make any assumptions about anybody or anything, that if you're going to make any assumption, assume the innocence in that person. Before you get upset at them or angry at them or whatever, you find out more, you learn more about them, ask questions before you assume anything. And again, it kind of gets back to your perception thing. So that's good. Okay? When we look at an organization, if we want a results-driven culture, all right, it has to start at the top. And who is this up at the top? Us. Every single person. This doesn't have to be the president. It doesn't have to be a vice president. It can be you. If you want to be a part of a culture that's results-driven and very accountable, then, it's going to flow down. It's like somebody mentioned, I think it was you, said it starts at the top, it goes down, all right, flows down. That's exactly what we're talking about, a results-driven culture. All right, it's going to affect those around you. Okay, now, very quickly, just going to touch on this because in those of you in the workshop, we're going to expand on this later. Thank you. We have something called above the line and below the line. Above the line is being accountable. And there's certain behaviors that support accountability. And there's 4 key behaviors or 4 key concepts. It's called see it, own it, solve it, and do it. In other words, you see the situation, you own it, you take some ownership in it, you solve it, you don't look for what other problems there are, and then you actually do it. All right, and in the workshop this afternoon, we're going to take each one of these 4 and break them down into behaviors so that you can see what that looks like. What does it really look like to see it? What does it really look like to own it, solve it, and do it? All right, that's above the line, which is where we want to be. Below the line, all right, are those behaviors that avoid accountability. Okay, now, when you look at some of these, cover your tail, wait and see, confusion and tell me what to do. Can you identify with some of these? Where maybe you do some of them, or maybe you see people that do some of them. What's cover your tail? What does that look like? When you cover your tail, something happens and you're going to cover your tail to avoid being accountable. What might that look like or sound like?
Manipulating data.
Doing what?
Manipulating the situation.
Okay, manipulating the situation or the story. Okay, constructing some story to avoid being accountable. How about wait and see? Yeah, just ignore it. Just wait and see and hope it goes away. There's a problem, and if I just wait and see, maybe somebody else will solve it. Or maybe somebody else will do it. How about confusion and tell me what to do? Oh, I'm so confused. I don't know what to do. Just tell me what to do. All right, instead of taking the initiative and asking or just going ahead and taking the initiative and doing something, create a bunch of confusion until somebody tells me what to do. How about finger pointing? Right? That's pretty easy. Blaming? Well, it was that department. If they'd have got me that report on time, I'd have been able to get you your numbers. But they're the ones that fell back. All right? So I take no accountability at all. How about ignore or deny? Pretty self-explanatory. Just ignore it, deny it again, pretend it's not there. All right? And maybe it'll go away. How about it's not my job? It's not my job description. I've got a job description, right? And it's not in there. So that's why I didn't do it. Or that's why I didn't worry about it, because that's facilities job. You know what, this cord that's down here that's not quite taped down? Hey, it's not my job. Okay, it's facilities job. Now, if I were really accountable, I'd say, you know what? I can find some tape myself and tape it down, or I can contact somebody in a facilities and say, we have a safety issue here. By the way, it is taped down. I just use that as an example. So, okay. I know, I can see you scooting back going to get some. All right. So, yeah.
A lot of, I think, how much time you spend at either above or below that line
Uh-huh.
has a great deal to do with the management staff and being a supervisor, and whether or not you're given the freedom and like some of those things that take.
Yes.
Because some people are a little too.
Yep.
I feel like you have that.
Very much so. Leadership and management has a great deal to do with the culture that's created, absolutely. But what I'm suggesting to you is don't wait for them necessarily to do that. Do what you can to help create a culture of accountability and not necessarily wait for them. And that's not saying that they don't have a great deal of influence on it. You're very right. Okay? Now, a very important point I want to make is you have a choice. Accountability is a choice you make. Someone doesn't, you don't go to school to be accountable, to learn how to be accountable. You have a choice whether you want to be accountable or not. Okay? Above the line accountability is a sense of reality, ownership, commitment. If you're below the line, you play the victim role a lot. It's like, oh, poor me, woe is me, if I'd only known. Okay? Confusion, blaming others. But the operative word here is that you have a choice of whether you want to operate above the line or below the line. No one's holding your feet to the fire either way. You have that choice. All right? Again, if you're above the line, those around you are going to probably operate above the line. On the contrary, if you operate below the line, you can expect those around you to operate below the line. Think of families and the role that the parents play. Look, on a personal level, this is very true too. Okay, if you've got parents that operate below the line a lot, blaming, victimization, never taking responsibility, then they're probably going to have children that are that same way. Okay, and vice versa. All right, these are just some ways. I realize we're getting close to one, so I don't want to expand too long, but these are some ways to recognize if you are below the line. All right, and kind of a self-check, if you will, to ask yourself, am I operating below the line? Do I need to take a step back and look at my behaviors and ask myself, how can I be more accountable and what more can I do to get the result? Okay, so the question becomes, is it more productive to focus on what has happened to you, why, and by whom, or what you're going to do now and get the desired results? So the operative word there is productive. Which is more productive? Okay? Now, let me ask you something. Which is easier? Is it easier to be above the line or below the line? Is it? Good, I hope so. That's good if it is. Usually people say it's easier to be below the line. It's easier to point the finger at somebody else and not take any responsibility or accountability. Pardon me?
More frustrating, though. It's easier to just say, okay, what are we gonna do about this?
Yes, absolutely.
And then people throw people under the bus with the example I gave, but instead we can say, okay, as the advisor, something needs to be done.
Yes, and that's the accountable way to look at it. And you're right, it is much less frustrating to be at the top and operate that way than down below. Okay? So again, see it, own it, solve it, do it. Those are the four main steps to accountability. And just real quickly, these are the 16 behaviors. There's 4 behaviors under each one. And this is what we'll do this afternoon for those of you that are going to be in the workshop. We're going to take a look at each one of these behaviors and say, okay, what does this look like for me? And am I doing it? And what's it look like for my team? And is my team doing it? And you're going to get an opportunity to assess yourself and your team on how well you're doing in these areas. And at the end of the workshop, you'll have actually an action plan of something that you can take away and your team can take away of how can we improve. Okay? So kind of to start wrapping up, only when you assume full accountability for your thoughts, feelings, actions, and results can you direct your own destiny. Otherwise, someone or something else will. Again, if you don't take full accountability, then somebody else is going to do it for you. So why not take the ownership? Okay, it begins with you. So just one thing I want you to think about, you don't have to share this, but something I want you to think about as you leave here today. What's one concept that you're going to apply to your role here at Southern Utah University, and how are you going to do it? Maybe it's stop pointing the finger. Maybe it is asking yourself, what more can I do to get the results? But I'd like to challenge you to, when you walk away today, to take one thing that you heard and ask yourself, how can I apply this to my job and how am I going to do it? Okay? All right. And the Oz principle definition of accountability, which we've been talking about, is it's a personal choice. Again, it's a choice that you have to rise above one's circumstances to demonstrate the ownership necessary for achieving the desired results. To see it, own it, solve it, and do it. All right? So with that, I thank you for your time, and I'd be more than happy to field any questions that you might have or talk afterwards if you want. I know we kind of went through some of this kind of quickly, but I'd be glad to visit with any of you afterwards if you'd like. Okay? Anybody have any questions now?